and I hope you can hear me well. I had some difficulties hearing the introduction here, but that's because I don't have Chrome on my computer. I was ill prepared because we are, as everyone in the business at the moment, we are quite challenged with all the changes in planning that we are undergoing on a daily basis, I would say. So, sustainable music, the challenges for the classical musical world. When the headline was set quite a while ago, little did we know how the world would change at that point. So some of what I'm going to present to you today has to be filtered through a pre-pandemic mind, but I will go into the post-pandemic version as well, how to interpret the new world, or how we propose to go forward when reopening the classical musical world. So I hope you can see, I have a picture here of my orchestra, the Helsingborg Symphony Orchestra. I hope you can see it. It's the first slide of my presentation. It's actually the most happy looking orchestra picture I've ever seen in my whole career. And it has a reason why it's so. During the photo shoot, the fire alarm went off, and that made everyone laugh, paradoxically. But that made everyone really, really happy. It's a metaphor as well, that we should maybe take alarms seriously. So the HSO was founded in 1912. One of the 7 professional symphony orchestras and one of the 29 professional ensembles and orchestras and opera houses in Sweden. We are at the moment 61 musicians from a broad array of nationalities, some 10 to 12 nationalities. And we have been, as all orchestras, since the jet age of the 40s and 50s, when that started, been a touring orchestra. We have been, as late as 2018, we went to a month-long US tour. We all flew there to the US, and then we went by bus from Florida to New York during a month, playing some 22, 23 venues on the way. On returning from that tour, we asked ourselves, exhausted as we were, whether this was a sustainable way to work, and whether it actually had a positive impact on quality as such. And this period of reflection was also seasoned by the fact that we had a soloist coming from Stockholm, and he, Jakob Korani, a cello soloist, brilliant musician, and he asked us that he begged us that, no, I want to go by train down to Helsingborg. We are in the south of Sweden, so it's some 600 kilometers from Stockholm. We were a bit startled by this demand, but of course we made it so. And when he arrived to Helsingborg, he asked us what we're doing to compensate for all the musicians, all the soloists and conductors coming to us more often than not by plane. And of course, at that point, we did nothing. I would say that most of the business was very much, to most of the business, this reflection around how to travel to concert venues was a bit of a non-issue, actually. It wasn't discussed, really. But we started discussing it internally and made actually an analysis of our CO2 emissions. And if you can see that, it's the third slide. We could see that, yeah, traveling is in fact, or artists travels, the red part of the pie chart, was a fair piece of our total CO2 emissions, whereas the actual playing would be around 2% of the total CO2 emissions. So music making in itself is not does not make a huge imprint. And as you can see, energy is, as always, the biggest piece of the pie. So we started working on or discussing these different aspects and started to make plans for how to lower our energy outlet and different other aspects, the audience coming to us and things like that. And also we finally attacked the issue of artists and conductors coming to us. And of course, the biggest discussion for us was, or worry, let's say, was that there was an implication that if we started to demand that artists and conductors would come to us with other means than airplane, this would potentially attack or jeopardize our strive for excellence and quality in what we're doing. However, after long discussion within our artistic board, we came to the conclusion that no, it's probably not that big a challenge to our aspirations towards quality and excellence. Especially as we are situated in the south of Sweden, I can see actually through my window, I see Denmark here. So we have just 3 kilometers or so to Denmark, and Denmark is, as you know, linked to the rest of Europe. So depending on how much time you are willing to spend in order to reach excellence, there was indeed possibilities for us to still continue the same striving for excellence without airplanes. So we decided to go for this, and our decision was in fact a kind of liberal one, I would say, still, because we said that we will prioritize the conductors and artists who would like to come to us with other means of travel than airplane. And we made a press release about this, and the reaction came instantly in the shape of quite a high media coverage around our decision, and also it was interpreted as a full stop on all flying, a sort of a boycott from our part. We were even depicted as some sort of environmental Talibans here in our regional environment. But of course, that was not the fact, but it was very interesting and very rewarding also to see that we contributed to starting a wider debate, wider discussion through media about the business and the sustainability of our business. We also got quite hard criticism for this step, this choice. But I would say that the most rewarding was, of course, the cheers from several parts of the classical music community or industry, especially freelancers who live on with their suitcases, who would love to see a development towards a more sustainable way of working, with less one-off travels to Taiwan or wherever they go to present their music. So it became clear from that debate that air travel had, since the 40s and 50s, become an inseparable commodity, so to speak, for the classical music industry, and the both in terms of self-image, but also in the ability of monetizing on the business and establishing and boosting careers. All of this sits together very tightly with the idea of flying. what we also saw that this step to go towards another way of looking at our everyday business meant another way of looking at the normal handling, the normal business, which is, you could you could call it a sort of a flavor of the week type of programming, where you have every week you present a new conductor, a new artist, a new singer, new violin player, playing solo with the orchestra. When it comes to touring, we often traditionally look at the possibility of going to the bigger cities of Europe, or going to the United States, or to China, or to Japan. All of a sudden, this got a new perspective for us. We wanted to move from this flavor of the week type of work, going towards a more, also in that respect, more sustainable way of working with music. Because if, as we did, we started planning for longer periods of time, periods of residence for conductors and soloists, in order for us to also get to know the conductors, get to know the soloists better, and also giving our audience a possibility to get to know the music of these soloists and conductors, and also to see how the interaction between us, the orchestra, and the guests develop over time. So there's that aspect as well. And we see that taking this step has also made us more aware of the possibility of the arts and also the classical music scene to become sort of a more ethical partner in society, just in contrast to the easy access commodity type of work, that type of business that seemingly has a part of the purpose of confirming a kind of status quo. Because if you think about it, the classical music industry is very geared towards being able to ship programs globally to as fast as possible and with as high an income as possible. This is the way it has been developing the last 40, 50 years, I would say. And the aspect that has been the most celebrated of the classical music as an art form is the performative aspect. That is, we love to hear the new different versions of Brahms or Beethoven symphonies, and we compare them to other versions. And this has made the industry very reluctant to explore other routes. For instance, the more creative routes of classical music, what the aspects that actually built the canonic perspective of the repertoire, for instance. So it has made us or pushed us into a position where we are more prone to find the creative solutions. We are more prone to explore collaborations with composers than we were before, I would say. And of course, with the pandemic now, to turn towards that, just to comment on how did it all play out then. Well, we were starting, we planned for having the season 2021 as the first green season, and then continuing. But of course now, starting this autumn, everyone or almost everyone has been forced to sort of a forced green perspective on what we're doing globally, because of different various lockdown-like situations. At the moment, we don't play with the orchestra because of the current situation in Sweden. However, we have the very same cello soloist, Jakob Korani, who inspired us in the first place. He's now tonight playing live the cello suites, two of the cello suites by Johann Sebastian Bach. But as you can, so it wouldn't be relevant to compare this season's results with our intentions, but we will come back to that, of course, when things are normalizing. But during the pandemic, we've seen that quite a few orchestras, conductors, and orchestra managers have come out in a criticism towards what some have called vanity publishing, the idea of putting a symphony orchestra into a plane, flying it to places where there already exist orchestras that play the same or approximately the same repertoire. And this idea of classical music as part of a global, sort of a global beauty contest, I find detrimental to the business, and I dare say even to the art form. So even though there is relevance, I would say, also to the idea of bringing live music and musicians to areas where there normally doesn't exist any live classical music, there is a necessity, I think, for the business as a whole to consider the joint responsibility for working towards a more sustainable approach to the business, because it also has a good influence on the way we reason around things as excellence and quality, and what is that in fact? Is that only on a performative with a performative perspective, or are there other perspectives on classical music and the development of the classical music that might be interesting for the future? So I see I'm running slightly out of time here. Slowly, I'll just move forward to a kind of conclusion. As I said, to us, this idea of sustainability and working towards a more sustainable way of working. Oh, here's Karajan with an airplane, by the way. It sits together with other issues of sustainability. It's also about social sustainability. It's about equality and other perspectives that help us develop our view on repertoire, our views on quality, and the everyday business. And even though international exchange really is part of the musical DNA of the orchestral world, I think it's important that we try and find ways to work together in the business in order to create a sustainable continuation of this international exchange that actually has been going on since many years before any airplane left the ground, I have to underline. And some ways of collaboration could be that we find ways to wherever it's possible to prioritize artists that choose to come to your venues by other means of transport. And of course, different geographical positions will pose different degrees of challenge to this idea. It's easier for us in Helsingborg with the proximity to Denmark and Germany and the rest of Europe than, for instance, Iceland, I would say. And also, I think it's important to prioritize collaborative work and try to pool resources on a greater geographical scale. That means, for instance, being able to, in collaboration with agencies, finding ways to share conductors, share soloists on a larger scale than before. And also, I think there's a point to listen with big ears to the freelancing musicians of today. There are a few communities out there, or discussion groups on Facebook as well, with freelance musicians who are discussing ways to make their lives and the classical music industry more sustainable from this particular perspective. And I would say also that it's important that we establish more networks within the orchestra community and concert hall community to find and exchange best practices and other perspectives on what we can do, how we can contribute. Collaborations around longer residence periods with conductors and soloists. That has, of course, an impact on a smaller impact on the CO2 footprint, but also and foremost, I would say, it would help create a more intimate artistic relation between the orchestra and the guests and the audiences. I think ending that the sustainability work that we started in Helsingborg has for us become a tool to work with diversity in general, but also specifically within the music itself and the programming, because as soon as you put on the spectacles of classical music being actually a part of the ongoing society around us, as soon as we hook up with society around us, we see many interesting other perspectives also when it comes to the way we define the classical music repertoire and quality, and how to put the strive for excellence in relation to other perspectives of other possible perspectives of the classical music world, which is a beautiful world, I have to conclude by saying. So, thank you for my 20 minutes.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Fredrik. This is the sign for applause in these digital worlds. And thanks, for the insights into your journey virtually that you've come along over the past months. And there's already the first question in the chat, which I like to pass on to you, and it's about, could you please describe more specifically how your decision to reduce your carbon footprint influences your Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I don't really hear you there. It's chopped up, unfortunately.
Can you read the chat on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
Maybe you can read the question.
Yeah. Okay, there's a question here about more specifically how the decision to reduce our carbon footprint influences our programming compared to other orchestras. Well, I would say in a way, of course, a lot of what we do is still oriented towards the core repertoire, but I would say that the most significant difference is that we have embarked on a route with themed seasons, where for this season, the current season we're in, it is about sustainability, and we have for each concert a different aspect of sustainability that we build the programs around. And also for the future, this will be the way we work, not specifically with sustainability as a starting point, but as a way of as a metaphor for, or help to us to dig deeper into the relation between classical music and the ongoing outside our concert hall. will continue using the themed seasons for us to also try to be at the center of debate within the classical music scene in Sweden and hopefully also internationally. I think it's important that we try to be on our toes to formulate ourselves around the relevance of classical music. So this season it's a great deal of focus around that, and we also searched for artists with a particular interest for the sustainability issues. So we had well, today we had Jakob Korani, who was the inspirational source for everything almost. He's here. He should have been playing solo with the orchestra, but he came. He should have been coming by train, but he actually, because of the pandemic, he went by electrical car to us from Stockholm this time. So it's a little bit about that. It's more general than specific, but the very clear imprint that is made on is this season's program, I would say.
Thank you.
Okay, here's another question. Do we have time for that?
Yeah.
In what way has funding supported or challenged your specific ways to become more ethically sustainable? I would say that here in Sweden there is a mission for all the institutions on the cultural side, orchestras, theaters, to work towards sustainable development. We haven't received any specific funding apart from the ground founding we already have, because it's part of what we should be doing. And this is another insight that we've had this mission, this obligation, in fact, to work towards a more sustainable business model for a decade at least in Sweden. And I share this mission with all my colleagues in Sweden, but I think we have not been really considering this in what the practical sense would be of the work. So, but I can foresee a need for external funding, because we see that the more we demand that people travel by train, the more time it will take for them to come to us, and thus also maybe this will change the demands for remuneration and fees. So there we are.
Right. Thank you very much, Fredrik, again for your presentation, for the insights, specifically also with regard to artistic perspectives and sustainability. And we've already come to an end. The session is already over. Thank you, everybody who joined us today in this morning slot on green culture management. I wish you all a good continuation of the Congress, and hopefully see you later in some of the other sessions. Thank you very much, and have a good lunch break. I think it's lunch break now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.